Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the eMarketing Association, Did It and Giving Forward, and I'm here with Jeanniey Walden from DailyPay. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kevin. It's great to see you.
Likewise. So not everybody knows what DailyPay is. Mainly I know about it because I just keep
What?
it on LinkedIn.
Really? Not everybody knows? Oh,
Well, they will after this. So
after the sale.
this is your opportunity to further hone your elevator pitch.
Yes, there you go. That works. That's awesome. Well, for those like three people who don't know that, my mom hasn't called and shared her, with excitement what I do. It's really simple. Daily Pay is committed to working with businesses to enable their employees to have choice and control over when they get their pay. So we allow people to access their pay as soon as they earn it, if they need it, instead of waiting for a traditional 2 week, once a week, or even once a month payday.
So in the past, Did It had payday loan companies. So clearly it's very different than payday loans. Right, exactly. So for those people who might mistakenly assume it is like payday loans, how would you differentiate for them?
Bad, bad, bad. We are not a payday loan. So this is a very simple premise. Before World War II, when you worked, your company paid you actually daily. You went into the payroll office and they gave you your money and you went back home. It was only after World War II when the government was looking to control the funds that were coming in and out to help the economy get back on its feet.
Right.
They started to implement taxation around employment and other laws, and it just became far more efficient for companies to start moving to a company designated payday. So with that said, it was really a company derived initiative that every company decides, hey, I'm going to pay people on the 15th and 30th, on the second and fourth weeks of the month, whatever it is. Yet as an employee, we're all earning money every hour that we're working. And as an employee, if you decided to up and quit your job on a Tuesday and that's your last day, your company owes you the money that you have earned up until your final hour of working. So they write you a check right there, or they direct deposit it into your funds. So you're earning money, but you're letting the company keep it until a designated payday. So that is absolutely not alone. It's your money, the same money that you would get if you were no longer associated with the company. All we are doing is we're acting as that organization that sits in the middle between the employer and the employee. The employer validates the hours that are worked and the dollars that you've earned so that there's no mistake there. And we make that available on an app. And it works really well, especially for hourly workers or shift workers that, you know, payroll shuts down on a Tuesday. So this week's earnings stop on a Tuesday, but you don't get the check until the following Friday.
Yeah.
You might not even be sure how much is going to be in your check. Did you work overtime, extra hours? Was there a holiday included? Daily Pay allows you to see actually how much money you've earned and then, have access. Like I said, choice and control. It's absolutely not alone. There's nothing to pay back. There's no interest rate. There's no tipping. It really is, the money's available to you. It's free to employers and to employees. You pay a one-time transaction fee, just like an ATM, if you need to take your money out. If you don't need to take it out, there's no transaction fees at all, and you get your money on the company scheduled payday.
Right, right. I did notice there was something that looked like an advanced feature. Is it, does that have a lending element to it, or did I misread something?
No, so there is absolutely no lending at all. There's no lending. It's money that you've earned. The advance piece is kind of brilliant. So with the example that I gave you, your hour cutoff is on a Tuesday. So, say I worked at Taco Bell and I made $350 at the end of my earnings period because payroll has to turn the file in, right? So I've earned $300. I get that $300 on my company's scheduled payday on Friday, but I started working again the next day on Wednesday, and it's accruing money that I've earned for the next pay period.
Right.
So when Friday comes around, even though I'm getting a check for the money that I earned on Tuesday, I've also already earned money for the next period that I can access if I end up getting my company scheduled check and I'm still a little short on a bill or surprised with an unexpected expense. So I think when you saw the advance piece, it meant that you could get your current pay earnings in advance of your next paycheck, but definitely no advances, not a payday loan at all.
Right, right. So it's really just eliminating the float. Ordinarily, there's a little bit of a
Totally.
float, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
clarifies it
Mhm.
for me.
Yes,
No,
yes, and
thank you.
DailyPay covers that float, by the way, so there is zero change for the organization. There's no change to their books, there's no change to payroll, there's no change to, any kind of cash balances,
Right.
so, we take care of that too.
Cool, cool. Well, thanks for explaining
Yeah,
it so well.
sure, sure.
So ordinarily, within marketing, one tends to think about B2B or B2C. Sometimes in like pharmaceutical, there's like this B2B and then the consume B2B to C, but you're B2B to E because it's an employer. I assume that's what
Yes,
the E stands for. So
yeah,
how
yeah.
does that work when you're building your market?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, I've had jobs where I've been a CMO for a straight B2C company, a straight B2B company, and those are very straightforward. I've been the CMO at companies that are B2B2C, where, it works on both ends. This is really my first B2B to E job. I think that's kind of a new thing in general, because and it's very different. It's very interesting because on one hand, the B2B, look, B2B is the same. The B2B is the same no matter who you're talking to, but that B2E piece of it with the employee involved means it's not, you can't go as direct as you do with consumer marketing.
Right.
You have to work in concert with the employer. And also, I wish I could do a big general brand campaign that said, hey, if you're an employee, you should get daily pay. But unfortunately, if your employer is not offering daily pay, then I can't help you. And we don't want to anger people who really do need access to their money, but their employer hasn't yet adopted daily pay. So B2B to E it's like a combo of B2C marketing and internal comms all at the same time. So imagine like trying to promote your, open enrollment for benefits and those strategies you use inside your company to get employees to do things, but also combining it with what you would traditionally do for the general consumer. And it creates a whole interesting world of communication and marketing, which I love. So it's great.
That's cool. So what's the range of adoption from sort of like the low end to the high end as far as employees from a company saying, oh, I want this. This is cool.
Yeah, so I'd say the average it's in the like 30 to 40% range, but I think with certain organizations, we've seen it as high as 70, 80%. It really and what makes it better or worse is the involvement of the store. So I've got like a OSL. OSL is a mobile company that is inside retail chains. Like they're in every Walmart. If you go into a Walmart, you're looking at the mobile section. That is run by OSL.
Right.
These guys love daily pay to the point where they actually made, I talk about it all the time. So Cynthia, if you're listening, yes, it's me talking about your video again. They went and had an employee make a video singing the OSL money song. And it is like the most brilliant piece of what I would normally call TikTok marketing if you could put it out there, but it's only for OSL employees. That just makes it so much fun to A, understand what daily pay is, and B, understand why it's useful to you. It's great. So when employers get involved, their employees get very excited. And from that perspective, it's phenomenal. And you see the usage rates go high. The other thing that's cool is the longer we're in business and the more employees are actually out there using daily pay, the higher the percentage of people who look for daily pay at their next job. So if you've got somebody that works at, for example, Taco Bell or Applebee's, and they're looking for a second job or another job, and they go out there, they're actually Googling jobs that pay with daily pay. So they're already really familiar with the program. So when you get that transfer of people, the usage percentage is really high as well.
So does your sales team get calls from HR departments as a result of people saying, hey, the potential employees basically being your advocates?
Yeah, yeah. Now it's not at the mass levels that I wish it was, like in New York City with those giant rats outside the building with people standing around. Like I wish people are standing outside their HR teams, well, when we used to be able to be in person, demanding daily pay. I think we'll get there. We will get there soon enough, but maybe next year. But at this point in time, yeah, there are a lot of employees who say, "Hey, I took this job. When are you going to offer daily pay?" And we do get referrals that way. I want to say maybe 3 to 5% of our leads come in that way, which is incredible. It's a testimonial because when you're doing that consumer marketing to the employees, as you know, with a consumer brand, you have to be spot on with customer service. You have to absolutely be the gold standard. The quality has to be there. And, I'll say at certain times, if we get the wrong file from an employer that said that you only made $100 instead of 200, it's not the employer that's going to be looked at negatively. They're going to be looking at the DailyPay app and say, why is my money wrong? So that reflects on us as a brand. So we have really tight relationships with the employers to make sure that we're extremely responsive to employee challenges. In fact, we've built our own employee call center so that we can help in those areas. And it's very cool. We're like literally on the front lines. And from that aspect, I love it because employees actually also email us and tell us how appreciative they are, what they use the money for. And we hear like incredibly amazing stories, everything from a woman who was in line at the grocery store, her kids were home from college, and as they were like sliding things through, she realized she did not have enough money to support three of her kids being home from college on the same weekend. So she used Daily Pay in line, and she said it was great. I didn't have to be embarrassed. I didn't have to put anything back. I didn't have to get out of line. Simultaneously, we had a gentleman who emailed us and said, look, I wanted to buy a car. My credit rating was awful. I used DailyPay proactively to pay down my high interest credit cards, reduce my utilization, and jack up my credit score. So I love all the stories. They're really all across the board.
That's cool. You mentioned QSR and you mentioned the retail mobile store. Are there any other industries, construction or other ones that are particularly useful for you guys?
Yeah, high turnover industries are a sweet spot for us. So, from an essential worker standpoint, right now it's grocery stores, it's hospitals, it's home health care. Prior to the pandemic, anything in hospitality, hotels, restaurants, car parking, valet parking, certainly retail, any staffing services, anywhere where there's high turnover, call centers, and a lot of hourly employees works really well. That said, there are pretty high percentage. It's in the double digits of salaried employees who also use Daily Pay fairly frequently as needed. I think, and especially during the pandemic, it's really changed usage like significantly.
Right, right. So one topic that's been pretty hot during the pandemic, probably somewhat coincidentally, but certainly social impact, social justice. There are a lot of topics that businesses are being asked to take a stand on. So what do you recommend that how businesses should approach that challenge of should we take a stand on social impact? How should we deal with our CSR? Should our CSR be very employee engaged, or should we do it at the corporate level, and all the elements of that? I'm sure that's been part of something that's fallen on your plate over the years and is on your plate now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have two different answers for this. I mean, first and foremost, I can tell you, being so closely aligned with so many employees are absolutely looking for their companies to be the leaders in all areas of responsibility, with the pandemic, certainly in personal safety, in financial wellness, things that we do with Daily Pay, and then also from a social perspective. They're expecting their employers to lead the charge in the way that they manage their own organization from a cultural perspective with ERGs or any types of other initiatives with volunteer and community-based efforts with diversity and inclusion focus. So yeah, I would say it is not just the marketing team's job, certainly for any kind of corporate or social responsibility. It's the CEO's job, and the employees are watching very, very carefully. In fact, we do an insane amount of studies and data analysis, and we just came out with a Harris poll with some results that said employees, as you can imagine, with many of us, are cash strapped for the holidays, and 47% of them are looking to their employers for advice, for access to programs, and for information on how they can maintain a good work-life balance and support their family over the holidays. A couple months prior, we did that same survey around social responsibility, and we found that the numbers were even higher. 67% of employees are looking for their company to take a stand from a social responsibility standpoint and really set the stage, provide allowances, and get involved. And I think that's great. At DailyPay, it's been like really interesting during the pandemic. We all got together early on when we all thought it was going to be like a week or two, and decided what we could do short term. And when we all realized this was a long term initiative, we started to take a hard look at, what do the employees need? What do we need to do for the community? How can we give back? And put a tremendous number of plans together. We actually waived access fees for DailyPay for the first 3 months of the pandemic because we felt it was important. If people need access to their money, because this was certainly unprecedented, they should have it. So that did come out of my budget, and I was happy to do it, and I would do it again. But we wanted to make sure that every person could get the supplies they need to feel safe and take care of their families. On top of that, we're doing everything. I mean, DailyPay is such a great place to work. We have an online trainer who's 3 days a week doing classes with us for those who want to keep off the COVID-19 pounds that everybody's talking about. We do healthy eating, we do mindfulness, we have so many ERGs, women's groups, looking just at a variety of different initiatives from that perspective. And it's great. And I really think, it's really nice to have that bubble up from the employees themselves as to what they want that corporate and social responsibility look like.
Now, was that something that with the entire C-suite was involved in HR and yourself primarily, or was it just you and HR?
No, our C-suite works pretty closely together. Everybody from engineering, product, HR, marketing. So, we collectively come up with amazing ideas and get together and talk about the morale. I mean, I can tell you, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. I know exactly what the marketing teams want. I can tell you what the sales guys want, and probably, some of the executive office and client services, but I'm not going to be the first person to tell you exactly what the engineers on our staff want. So it's really critical to have the input of, our CTO, our CFO, and make sure that we're collectively understanding what do all employees want? What do they need? How can we best support the entire organization?
Right, right. So you mentioned TikTok style marketing earlier. Are there any marketing channels or marketing techniques that have you particularly excited at the moment?
Gosh, this is going to sound so silly. Um, Omni-channel marketing has me most excited right now. I'm just pretty obsessed with looking at how all these channels are playing together because certainly the world has changed drastically from a marketing perspective. And what used to work in-person events was a huge B2B lead gen source for us, especially as an emerging brand with an innovative tool. Having that FaceTime was really key. So when we lost that, the webinar just didn't make it the same. And while a lot of organizations went from an in-person event where you'd have 100 people attend your session to an online event where you'd have 1,000, the quality of the 1,000 as far as that personal relationship, it just wasn't exactly there. So we've been looking at what do you need to do and what's the right order. And I laugh every day because there is finally a purpose in the world for the QR code in the United States, which I never thought was going to happen, but here we are with having everybody finally using it. And direct mail, like who knew that talking about the Johnson box was actually going to be a cool thing again? Like, I mean, maybe for those of you who don't know what a Johnson box is, because there are people like that out there who are a lot younger than me. A Johnson box is simply the little message on your envelope on the outside with an ad on it. So you can see exactly, what's going to get you to open it. And then when you open the letter, it's the box so that you have the call to action on top of it. Learning, direct mail has come back into style, especially, direct mail to people's houses. And that was something I'm pretty sure that most marketers were unsure how it was going to be received. Are people going to get upset if a company sends a box to my house? And, that impact marketing where you used to FedEx the CEO the letter. How do you do that when you're all working at home? Do you still FedEx his house? Is that a little creepy? What's it look like? All those questions are back in style, and no single channel that stands out. I think it's a combo.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, if you remember the history of Did It, which is what pays my mortgage these days and has for 24 years, we started out as a SEO technology company, then SaaS, bid management for PPC. But recently we did acquire three digital direct mail companies. And I was shocked to see how much response rates went up during COVID-19.
Huge,
I
huge.
mean,
Yeah.
we don't know for sure. Our hypothesis is that people are just so happy to see a human come to their house. And so, a lot of things that might be forgiven.
Yeah. Well, it's been really interesting because I'm starting to get catalogs again from retailers for the holidays. And I think, one big shift, I mean, in our business, we're, 365, but for retail businesses, I mean, Black Friday sales kicked off this weekend. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I think that's fine. From a personal standpoint, it kills me to talk about Christmas before Halloween happened. But looking at seeing Hamburger Schlemmer's catalog came into the mailbox, Amazon had a Joy catalog that showed up in place. Like it's those catalogs again, like they're still a lot smaller than the Sears Wish Book, but you can still get the marker out and start circling things. So I think a little bit of that old school marketing is making its way back in and keeping people engaged while they're in their homes.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been finding that the hyper personalization, now that digital lasers are so inexpensive, you can personalize the cover of catalogs. You can send out personalized postcards that have not just name, address changes to it, but
Yeah,
completely different messaging. And that's been
yeah,
sort of really fun because I likened it to the dynamic creative optimization we do in banners, right? This idea like, oh, we know a little bit more about this person, we can customize the message, and that's taken the
totally.
old school mailbox and turned it into a hyper personalized communication channel, which is
Yeah,
super fun.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's interesting. The other thing that we've seen is um, never has my biz dev team been getting in so many conversations about complete marketing plan audits before. A lot of these marketing plans that we're looking at, they were wrong 5 years ago, but it
Yeah.
took a pandemic to sort of make management realize like, oh, now they're definitely wrong, right?
Oh,
They were
yeah,
equally wrong a year ago. They may be a little more wrong for next year than they would otherwise be, but it took sort of a shock to the
yeah,
marketing ecosystem to sort of wake these people up and realize, the marketing mix and the media mix, both unpaid and earned, it's not a matter of taking last year's Excel spreadsheet and just moving a few numbers around. I mean,
right.
sometimes you just really need to take a completely fresh look at it. That's been super fun. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do. So I tend to get sucked into those projects,
Yep,
because it allows you to really think about, all the levers you have to pull, from creative and messaging through targeting, and the cadence and choreography of things, and ways to use employees effectively, right? Because now that
yeah,
they all have social media accounts, how comfortable is the corporation with,
yeah,
allowing their employees to become a marketing channel? All that
for
stuff
sure.
is super fun. Um,
Yeah.
so have you guys been sort of embracing some of the new stuff for next year's planning as well?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I look, my title is Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer because I am the person to call when you've got the coolest new innovative marketing tactic and you want to try somewhere and test it out and see if it works. I mean, I'm a big fan and a big believer in looking at new innovations, new ways to take a look at things and really, giving everything a chance because you never know until you know. And like I said, with the OSL video and talking about TikTok marketing, um, we look at everything. We look at how can you make TikTok work? How can you make Instagram work? How can you make a story work? Does it make sense to look at Snapchat? Is it a combo of, what's the right planning? Is it put a poster in a store to let the employees know that DailyPay is available, show them a digital ad, send them an email, then send them another digital ad again. What's the multi-channel lift? How do you get to that omni-channel strategy? Do you do a behavioral overlay so that if 75% of the employees rent their homes, you can have that in the design? I mean, there's so many ways to optimize, and just so many cool tools to make it happen with. It's great. It's great to always try something new and see if it can drive some lift or not.
Yeah,
And there's all the old school stuff. I will tell you, the pandemic has brought back some of the tried and true methods. Email marketing, never stronger than it has been during the pandemic. Direct mail, even QR codes. I mean, Apple and Google made it easier when the QR code became capable of being used on your phone, so you don't need to download third-party apps to see the QR code. But restaurants really brought it back to life. Now I just wonder if the BlackBerry is going to come back and we'll be doing BlackBerry marketing.
yeah, I'm not sure about the BlackBerry. So medium to large advertisers often have that luxury of being able to test shiny objects because they have a little bit of spare budget here to try something new. And the two variables that are in short supply are obviously human capital and capital, marketing capital, the dollars. And
Mhm.
so, how do you recommend people go through the process of deciding how much of the budget should we use to try completely new things?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of always putting 25% of the budget to the side for innovation, and consider that that 25 is going to completely fail. Now, it never does. You never lose all 25% of it. Things actually do work, but if you go into it, especially, my CFO at DailyPay is amazing, and CFOs and marketers oftentimes will be at odds, but we are actually very aligned. That said, if you assume that 25% of your budget, it just gets set to the side, and you do your ROI and your planning with the other 75% to hit your numbers, that 25% then gives you the freedom to go out there and try new things, and fail fast. If it doesn't work, that's okay, because it was set aside. It's not going to impact your numbers. I think marketers get in trouble when they put innovation budgets aside with big promises, or they listen to some of the biz dev teams on the innovative products, and actually put that into their plans before they've tested. So I think that that's the key.
So managing expectations is key, I guess, with regards to the
Yeah,
shiny
absolutely.
objects.
Look, I've been at very large multi-billion dollar businesses. I've had five of my own little startups, so I get it. But I can promise you that it never, ever, ever will a CEO not fund something that's working phenomenally. So, put a little money aside, keep it quiet, do your test, find what's working phenomenally, then go to the CEO and CFO and say, hey, we want some more dollars for this, and they will find it, even if it's not in your budget. So you'll find more.
So I guess you're a big fan of using incremental marketing budget as opposed to moving things around when you do find something that works particularly well.
I'm a fan of both. Look, like I'm a I'm a fan. I tell my team I'm a fan of the Plan Z model, and this again comes from running five of my own businesses, a few that I sold, and a few that I shuttered for a variety of reasons. So I know success and I know failure. And in my world, there is the Plan A, which you intend to hit. There's the Plan B in case that doesn't happen, and what you're going to do, and your contingency, and stop when you get to Z, right? So make sure that no matter what happens, you always have a way to hit your numbers. And that often comes from dollar shifting, media management and shifting, but you can't be reactionary about it. If you've got to give media enough time to work as well, you've got to give your marketing plans enough time to get out and market. I think, talking about direct mail pieces, when I was at Mercer, we were doing internal comms testing an email that went from the CEO of the company to the employees. What was the average number of days it took for the majority of the employees to actually open that email? Now, you might think zero because it's coming from the CEO, and why would the CEO be mailing you? But actually, if you're a billion-dollar business with over 22,000 employees, why would the CEO be emailing you directly? It's probably not because he or she knows you directly. It's probably some general comms message. So if it's the end of the quarter and you're a consultant and you need to hit your numbers, guess what? That message can probably wait a few days, but we ended up coming up with 9. It's an average of 9 days for a critical message to internal comms to get all the way down through the masses of the employees. And then we managed our marketing around that. Direct mail is no different. There's the direct mail hits the home on a Monday, but how many days do you give it before it sits on the countertop? It gets looked through, it gets set aside 2 times. It oddly is 9 days. So, when you've got 9 days on average to get a communications piece to get someone's attention, you can't be short-sighted and say, oh, my direct mail hit home on a Tuesday and I'm not seeing any lift, so I'm never going to do direct mail again. You really do need to give all of your efforts time to run and see what works. But that said, shifting media dollars absolutely key, and we've shifted a ton during COVID.
Yeah.
The biggest shift obviously was immediately, and I think many other marketers had the same initiative or same issue happen. Immediately, we had significant open budget as in-person events went online. Yes, we still paid the sponsorship fee, but now we no longer had the cost of T&E, the booth cost, the shipping cost, like all of that opened up lots of dollars that we found ourselves either giving back to the company to be good corporate citizens, or looking at reallocating, and we did both. But it gave us some interesting times to plan and test.
Cool. Well, the direct mail story, the email story, which tied into the direct mail story, makes perfect sense. It's probably one of the reasons that we saw incremental lift when we started targeting the same households that we were direct mailing for clients, where we do a 1 week pre and a 1 week post with the watch your mailbox and then in case you missed it banners,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So they just see
Yeah.
that same brand, and if it did get buried in a pile somewhere in the kitchen, then sometimes that gets dug out. We also did some really fun stuff in adding hyper personalized promo codes or pearls, which eliminate friction when the consumer comes back in and uses that personalized code, because we already know everything about them, right? So that's already in the
Totally.
database. You don't have to
Yeah.
ask for all that information. We have a property tax abatement company where their BRC card, 7 years ago asked for your block and lot number. You can imagine how many people had that at their fingertips. Not that many.
Right.
And so by eliminating that step altogether, we're talking about, more than doubling their business in 3 years just by
Yeah.
removing friction.
Yeah.
So stuff like that is super fun.
Well,
Uh,
and we have 2 generations, both millennials and Gen Zs are frictionless generations, right? I mean, you think about with millennials, which my older daughter is, she grew up with Facebook and then moved into other models, but that whole frictionless targeted economy. But my younger daughter, who is as Gen Z as you could possibly get, like, sh life is just seamless. It is just, exactly like you said. It has to be embedded, and that's the expectation. That's the expectation no matter what they're doing, whether you want to order Uber Eats or you want a car and you order Uber or Lyft, or you want a house, you get Airbnb. I mean, everything is at your fingertips and there's almost no data required. It's that frictionless environment, which is what they expect. And it's funny because for my business at DailyPay, they expect that at work too.
right.
We are surprised by the number of millennials and Gen Zs who don't necessarily understand how hours accumulate for payroll because it's not real time. They understand daily pay, but when you have to explain that you accrue hours and there, no, I mean, it's just like a foreign concept to them. That's like trying to explain to them, how credit card billing statements work. Like many of the employees that we work with they have credit cards and they get online their digital balance, they pay it when it's due, and there is no 30-day credit limit cycle that has to
Right.
get explained. It's a whole new world of opportunity for us as marketers, which I love.
Yes, I think part of the advantage of not hiring people fresh out of school is, explaining how sick days and vacation days accrue. into the future, right? It's like, wait, I have no vacation. That's right. You have no vacation right now. Anyway, so clearly there's a lot of disruption going on in various layers of society at the moment. But often you see, either companies just accelerate out of times of disruption, or new opportunities arise. Um, how would you recommend that marketing teams look at the current disruption and turn that into opportunity?
I would suggest, and this is gonna sound crazy in the beginning, but it'll make sense in a second. I would suggest that marketers actually take a step back and look at the family or the household of the person that they're trying to reach instead of just the person. Because what we've seen at Daily Pay during the pandemic has been fascinating. Traditionally, Daily Pay has been used as an individual needs it. So, it's almost the end. It's 3 days before payday, and I got an unexpected fender bender, and my car's in the shop, and I need to rent a car or get Uber to work, and I don't have enough money in my bank account to take care of that expense until payday. Or a child unexpectedly got sick and I have to buy medicine that's not covered by a copay. It's $300. I mean, really actual, expenses. What happened during the pandemic were we saw a lot of individuals who have no problem taking care of their expenses, even unexpected, even, past that 400 average savings that people have. However, other significant people in the household, an adult child, an older family member, a spouse, a roommate, were negatively impacted by the pandemic. They took a pay cut, they were furloughed. They were furloughed with a huge delay in unemployment. They lost their job completely. Whatever variety of reasons is that all of a sudden, individual responsibilities and individual thinking became household planning almost. And what we saw at Daily Pay, where employees now that had never used Daily Pay in the past were now needing to use Daily Pay to effectively help get the family through, to bridge until the entire family could get back on their feet. Whether that meant, the spouse usually contributed to summer camp or something else. Now they would use Daily Pay to bridge so they didn't have a decreased quality of life, or, a college student's books, things like that. So what that caused us to do was step back and think about marketing. Yes, you're still going to the same decision maker, but what is the state of that decision maker right now? If it's a B2B initiative, is that decision maker really stressed out in their job because they are the only person with income? So the severity of the decisions they make could mean a change for income for their family. So they're going to be safer in their decisions. They want more trusted organizations. They're not going to be as innovative. If it's on the B2C side, in our case, the B2E side, is it really that impulse buy, or is it a responsible impulse buy? So yeah, you still want to get somebody to do an impulse buy, but in a responsible fashion that supports the family. So my recommendation would be, change your perspective on the personification and the segmentation strategies that you have, to consider the impact that COVID has had on household and family life, and look at different ways that you could subtly test very inexpensively messaging that speaks to what the person's actually feeling. And I think you'll be surprised with a significant increase in results.
That's a great way to look at it. I mean, certainly consumer journey market related marketing has been around for a while, but I think the idea that it's really not just the consumer's journey as it relates to the greater family unit or the family and friend unit is a really interesting way of looking at it, and the extent to which those other people may be influencers directly or indirectly, and they may also create either a headwind or tailwind when it comes to decision making. There's a lot to take in there from a marketing perspective.
For sure. For sure.
Great. So is there anything else you want to add before we wrap things up?
Well, I think some of the things that you've been talking about have been fascinating, and I love that you acquired so many direct mail companies and you're doing the laser messaging. What's your one piece of advice for holiday Q4 marketing getting ready for next year?
My piece of advice, which is not just purely Q4, because obviously B2Bs are counter-cyclical that way, but I find that, even though you want a holistic plan that has lots of channels working in concert, I find that very few senior marketing people understand the marginal impact that each channel has on the other channels and on your overall results. Because when budgets are going yo-yos in either direction, not knowing where you put your extra money if you get a 20% bump up, or not knowing where to cut if you lose 20% of your budget, is a big problem. Because if you don't sort of know
Yeah.
where that marginal incrementality is, you have no idea where to cut. And I saw that manifested most heavily in sort of the first few weeks of the shutdown, as everything got
Hmm.
pulled, right? And people
Yeah.
just didn't know. Like, they thought they knew, but they didn't really have a strong idea about, wait, which of these should I absolutely not be turning off because I'm buying dollars for 25 cents, right? And for me
Right.
to turn it off is absolutely insane.
Right.
And so obviously there's an emotional component to that, as it started from the CFO or CEO and rippled through the organization. But I feel like every senior level marketing person should be armed with the knowledge to know, okay, if you give me 20% more budget, or if I go to you and ask for 25 or 20 or 25% more budget, I know exactly what I'm going to do with it, right? Similarly, if for whatever reason we have to cut back, I know exactly where I'm going to cut. I may not get it perfect, but I have a pretty good idea of exactly where things are lying. And what people don't take into account with this is the market elasticities of the different markets, right? Which it used to be that the more media you bought, the cheaper you got it, right? So if you were buying 200 spots on 10 wins in New York, right? You could go and add 20% to that budget. You get an even better rate. Now
Right.
all of the online media is auctioned in real time, and search in particular is extremely inelastic. Right? You cannot raise and lower your budget, raise your budget and hit the same identical ROI within a little bit of wiggle room, right? But if you try to
Yeah.
double your SEM budget and hit the same ROI you were at before, good luck with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
So marketing teams have not fully adapted to this idea of not only understanding the unit economics and the marginal impact of everything, but also understanding, but wait a minute, some things I can double my budget and actually get an equally good deal. Other things I actually can't. And so it's more than just knowing the marginal impact. It's also knowing, can I deploy extra budget here or not?
Yeah.
So that's been
Brilliant
something
advice.
that I've noticed has become increasingly important in volatile times.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I
Yeah.
agree 100%
But
with
this is
you.
what happens when an economist goes into marketing. So, because I think of everything as markets, right? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.